Good morning. My name is Sharon Gublow, your worship associate for today. As you remain seated, please turn to one another, offering a welcome. We gather to worship, our hearts alive with hope, that here we will be truly seen, that here we will be welcomed into this garden of this community, where the simple and the elegant, the fluted and frilled, the shy and the dramatic complement one another and are treasured. May we know that here each contributes in their way to the beauty of the whole. Come, let us worship together. Before we begin our worship this morning, I would like to invite Christine to speak on behalf of Loving Hearts. Thank you, Christine. As you entered this morning, I hope you noticed the announcements on the screen. I have a few announcements I would like to emphasize. Wonderful Wednesdays is on August 13th at 5:30. Mark and Betsy Burrows will be speaking at 6:30 about participating in an international exchange program in Norway and the connections between Norwegian values and UU principles. Sign up on Realm or at the front desk. Randall Cothran invites everyone to a special coffee hour today in honor of India, who is celebrating her birthday. Please join us. All other announcements can be found on our website. This morning's speaker is Sandy Jones. She speaks today on the courage to grieve. Sandy has spent the past 4 years intensely studying the effects of loss and grief on families while writing her latest book on grieving. With the devastating toll on families from the pandemic, hurricanes, floods, wildfires, and mass murders, she believes we need to seriously look at the subject of loss and the grieving which follows. By bringing grief out into the open and giving it words, hopefully we can find comfort. Joan Teffer will assist me in lighting the candles. The chalice reading is by Gordon B. McKeeman. Let there be light. Let it shine in dark places, in moments of pain, in times of grief, in the darkness of hatred, violence, oppression, where there is discouragement and despair. Wherever darkness is to be put to flight, let there be light. We have several joys and sorrows to be shared with our community today. Kelly Alwyn lost her sister Lisa after a battle with cancer and other related illnesses. Lisa passed away on July 5th at the age of 45. Lisa is survived by both her parents, her two siblings, Kelly and Christina, and her children, ages 18 and 22. Bob and Christy Rangillian would like a candle lit for their daughter, Jessica, who has been ill this week and was at the emergency room. We light a candle in memory of Marcia Clark and comfort for her family and friends. Alex and Howie are back after missing 2 services, but many joys for being at the UU Summer Getaway at Radford University with their son Eric and grandson Liam. And birthday wishes for India.
We got stuck this morning. We're having a little celebration out here for India after service.
Yes, I announced that. Thank you. We also light a candle for all the joys and sorrows of those we hold in our hearts. The opening words are from Maureen Kaloran. Open your hearts, my friends, and let yourself feel the reality of absence. Open your hearts and acknowledge that we gather in the presence of death. Open your hearts, make room for the healing balm of connection, the release of forgiveness. No matter what pain dwells within your spirit, or how fragile the hope that struggles to be born, there is a place for you here in life's holy circle of compassion and love. The opening hymn is Lean on Me, and the words will be on the screen.
Good morning. My name's Kevin, and I work with the kids and the youth. And before we get into our words of wisdom for the day, just want to say that 2 days ago on Friday, we finished up our second adulting camp. It was called Adulting 101 Teen Life Skills Camp. And we had a nice group of teens that we learned about a wide variety of things to help them learn and grow as they head towards adulthood. Whether it was changing tires on a car and checking the fluids, to building a stool that they could take home and share with their family, to balancing a checkbook and the importance of savings, to health for their mind, health for their body, on, cooking, how to cook a meal. And we helped them to cook their own meal on Friday. It was really a great week. I want to say thank you to all the folks that helped make it happen, like Lorna Grella Sevilla, talking with them about mental health and wellness, Reverend Bob on fixing car, changing a tire, Jim and Alice Hardy, Bruce Tuxhorn. Appreciate the community that makes this happen. Our story today is called Many Threads Make a Blanket. It's by Tara Humphreys from the UU Worship Web. And this story doesn't happen in a village somewhere far away a long, long time ago. It happens in an apartment complex not too far from here that you might have lived in something like it before. There's a lot of apartments in the buildings. People come and go, but they don't really know each other very well. They come in, they might say hi in the hall or the stairwell, but then they head into their apartment and close and lock the door. Well, in this apartment complex, people didn't know each other very well, except for Lee and Sal. They lived together, and they seemed to know a lot of people. They would stop and talk with their neighbors. They made themselves available in the lobby a lot. And Lee always wore this purple cap, and Sal was always happy and chipper, and they always talked with everybody. Well, one day, a neighbor saw Sal after not having seen them for a while and asked how Sal was doing. And Sal looked in pain. And Sal said that Lee had recently passed away. And thankfully, the neighbor was a gifted conversationalist, and they started talking with Sal about their grief and learned that Sal was really feeling like they had lost the warmth and the light that had been Lee's presence. It's like a blanket had been taken away from them. So this neighbor went on his way, and he started thinking maybe they can make something like a grief blanket for Sal, because he had been a bit of a weaver at one time. So he got back to his apartment, started rummaging through his things, and pulled out his old loom, but didn't really have many fabrics or yarn or anything there. But he had remembered seeing a young man in the lobby one day who was knitting. And so when he saw that neighbor again, asked if they might have anything, dark yarn or anything like that. And the neighbor said, no, but I have some red yarn I could give you. So he gave him that. And he said, but there's also somebody I'd seen working on a quilt before. I can ask that neighbor if they have anything, maybe some fabrics. So that neighbor offered the weaver some of the fabrics, and they had seen somebody else who had a little son who had the cutest little boiled wool shoes that they had made that were purple. So they met up, and that family had always admired Lee's purple cap, and they gave some boiled wool to the project. And neighbor after neighbor gave a little bit of this and a little of that, some fabric, some yarn, some thread. And the weaver went to work, starting to work side by side on the loom and starting to make this blanket. And as it went along, more neighbors would come and check on the progress, maybe offer something for it, even like an old t-shirt that could be cut up. And it woven and was made and finally was ready. And it came out lumpy and bumpy and kind of skewed and with a rainbow of fabrics in it. Not a lot of dark fabrics like black or gray, but true rainbow. So the weaver finally brought it and knocked on Sal's door. And Sal opened the door and was wrapped in a black blanket. And the weaver went, oh, they already have a grieving blanket. And they just went and said, hey, Sal, how are you doing? I wanted to check on you. And they talked a bit. And then Sal said, what do you have? And Lee reluctantly pulled it out. And Sal said, oh, I'm sorry, I think I might have said ask Lee, but ask the Weaver what he had. And Sal said, "Oh, Lee would have loved that." The Weaver said, "Well, this is for you. Our community here in the building was thinking about you and thinking about your grief and loss. We want you to know that we are wanting to give you love, to wrap you in warmth, and help you through this time of grieving." Well, eventually, Sal did come slowly through the grieving and found that they were more connected to their neighbors all around them, but also found the neighbors were more connected to each other and that they were all enjoying a better community together. So, in our times of loss and our times of grief, let's remember to try and reach out to all of us so that we can all be better connected through our grief, and hopefully we'll emerge to a sunnier time. Thanks.
We have much to be thankful for. In gratitude, may we share what we have with others. This month, we are celebrating El Centro, and I invite Lisa McHenry to speak with us about this worthwhile program.
Good morning. El Centro began in the early 2000s when a group of community members came together to recognize the value of Hispanic Americans to our community. El Centro has been the only primarily Hispanic serving organization in Transylvania County for its entire existence. The Resource Referral Program helps to connect families with existing community resources like Sharing House and translators. They help newly arrived families find housing and enroll their kids in school. The current political climate is creating a lot of fear in the community that leads to all kinds of new situations. For example, Jessica, the executive director, told me about a man who called El Centro in a panic because he had renewed his driver's license and there was a *9 restriction code on the license. On the DMV website, there's a list of reasons for that restriction that includes things like DWIs. This man is here on a green card, so he's not a citizen, but he is a legal resident. He has never had a DWI or any other type of infraction, needs to drive to get to work, and didn't know what to do. El Centro was able to connect him with a member of the community who doesn't work for El Centro, but provides a tremendous amount of support. She found out that being a non-citizen driver is one of the reasons for that restriction, that it does not mean the system has him wrongly classified as a traffic offender. He was able to feel less afraid and continue driving to work. One of the new programs El Centro has started is a mental health family night. Parents and kids, along with a counselor, get together to share their experiences. This has really helped families navigate difficult situations. The Homework Club has been operating for quite a while now. They provide one-on-one tutoring for elementary school children. Tutors do not need to speak Spanish, and they are looking for more tutors, more volunteers. The children are all fluent in speaking English, although they come from homes where English is not the primary language. The tutoring helps with writing and reading comprehension. The Bilingual Club is for middle and high school students. They improve their English skills using interactive activities, casual conversations, games, and group discussions. Jessica told me that school attendance had been a huge problem and was putting kids at risk. She made school attendance a requirement for staying in the program, and attendance increased dramatically. The kids keep busy, spend less time on their cell phones, get in less trouble. They feel safe, heard, and seen. A new project that's kind of exciting is they're writing a book. Often kids come to this country with their parents because the parents need to flee for the family's safety, but the kids didn't make that choice. The book will be about kids and their journeys to us. It will be called The American Dream We Didn't Ask For. I'm looking forward to reading it. Please be as generous as you can in supporting El Centro, as they do so much to support our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. If you wish to give to El Centro, please put your gift in the envelope in the offering plate. We will now take the morning offering. In gratitude for your generosity, we say thank you. Let us prepare for our time of reflection and meditation. To the God of our own understanding, the Spirit with whom we commune this morning, we ask that our minds be open, our hearts welcoming, our arms embracing. We lift up those whose lives are touched by sadness, by illness, by worry, or by loneliness, especially Kelly Ann Alwyn and her family, Jessica Rangillian, and Marcia Clark. May they find comfort, hope, and healing strength in this community and the larger community. We celebrate those whose lives are whole and well, in particular, Alex and Howie and India. May they share their joy and strength with those in need and find warmth and love in the sharing of their spirit. And for all prayers unsaid and in our hearts, we pray. Amen and blessed be. A reading by Jessica Van Nest. Grief is hard. It is relentless and exhausting, and a constant reminder of the void in our lives. Grief is painful, a physical pain within our chest, reminding us that our hearts have splintered. Grief is exhausting. It takes everything to keep going, day after day, to live for our loved ones. Grief is isolating. We feel alone, as if no one understands, as if we are drowning and no one notices that we don't even know how to swim. Grief is scary. The thoughts in our heads get dark and real. They tell us, just let go, as if no one would care if we slipped away. But we are not alone. So many others know this pain. They feel this void too. So say their name. Tell the stories of those you've lost. Tell me about your person and smile at the good memories. Cry for their absence. You are safe to grieve here. We are not alone. We are not alone. We are not alone. And now, Sandy Jones.
Sharon, that was my sermon. Christine, these flowers in a way are symbolic to me. I spent most of my career talking with parents and talking about pregnancy and childbirth and what an impact that has on people's families, baby's breath. And so now I've turned to the opposite side of that spectrum, to death and dying. And I think I have a right to do that because I'm an octogenarian, but I prefer to be called chronologically gifted, if you don't mind. We're going to look at, go backward and take a look at life in 1911. A couple of weeks ago, was looking at the Boy Scout manual, the first one that came out in 1911. And it was filled with all kinds of advice about how to get through life. Unitarians would probably call it Adulting 101 for teenagers, maybe. 1911, my grandfather was 15 years old. So that tells us how close we are to that event. And I came down to the, what's the word? The merit badge, if you will. One of them that stuck out in my mind. And we can look at it and sort of chuckle about it. And let's see if I can find, there we go. No, in the country, in the 2-mile radius, approximately the number of horses, cattle, sheep, and pigs owned in the 5 neighboring farms, or in a town must know a half-mile radius what livery stables, garages, and blacksmiths there are. Now, how things have changed. Back then, there were very few hospitals. Doctors did house calls. They would arrive in their carriage pulled by a horse, or they might arrive in a newfangled horseless carriage that traveled across muddy ruts at a speed of 5 miles an hour. People back then only lived to be 30 or 40. Thankfully, my grandfather exceeded that. What took their lives was pneumonia or typhoid fever or a kind of intestinal infection, enteritis. And they had their a compassionate community, a village, if you will, most of them knowing people not just for their generation, but from generations before that. If we'll look at the woman, so there we go. The family would join together around the person. So would the neighbors, kinfolk, children. The preacher probably would arrive as death came nearer. They were very familiar with death and dying because it happened so often. 1/3 of those who died were children, babies actually, and young children. There would be prayers. There would be gentle songs. There would be kissing the person on the cheeks, thanking them for their lives. There would be overt weeping, both during the dying process and afterward. It happened at home. Let's flash forward now into the present time and take a look at the contrast between 1911 and now. We have made hospitals the place that we die if we get sick, or hospices, surrounded by strangers that you don't know, hooked up to machines that are beeping, getting checks every half an hour or more. It's a lonely place to be, and family will come, but then they're visiting hours, and you can only stay for a certain amount of time. And I know in talking with you, like me, you've already had a litany of losses, haven't you? You could name them. My mother, in her 80s, said that she had lost 32 of her friends. So I'm not talking to a crowd that doesn't already know viscerally what that feels like. But as in my introduction, and that is to bring it forward and let's talk about it rather than having it be secret. There are now 6,000 hospitals in America in that short time, over 1 million registered doctors, 20,000 drugs, $18 billion spent by the pharmaceutical industry in getting us to take them. But then comes the pandemic. And none of us could imagine or be prepared for that. And around 2020, I tried to think in my mind what 14,000 caskets would look like. How many football fields would they fill? Little did I know that it would be 80 times more than that by the end. 1,100,000 and something now, and still counting, with the embers, as we know from our own congregation, still burning. Who could forget the scenes that we saw of ambulances all lined up, hospitals filled with beds even out in the halls, videos of nurses weeping in their cars from exhaustion and their grief and their helplessness to make a change. Refrigerated trucks behind the hospital to hold on to the dead until someone would come to claim them. So the horror of this, I would say that I'm safe in saying on some level we are a grieving nation. But here's the thing, we are a death-denying nation, a grief-suppressing nation. And that is that what happens is that it leaves those of us in grief to go private, to have two faces the front face, "How are you?" "Oh, I'm doing pretty well." While inside, we're filled with pain and anguish. Our lives have taken such a drastic and unwanted turn. And because we're so separate from the village, so separate from the surroundings of loving people, many people have gone to the cities and left the farms. There's fear involved. And fortunately, I think, science, our doctors, and by the way, hospitals don't necessarily make grief go away or make dying go away. Maybe they prolong it. So have we placed a kind of reassuring thought that the doctors and the hospitals and all the medicine and all the drugs and all the machines and the chemicals and the interventions will somehow take death away from us, protect us? But it doesn't work, does it? Ultimately, it's inevitable, whether we want it or not. Fortunately, again, as I started to say, is that we have learned a lot now about science. It was mentioned that I've spent a lot of time looking at the process of grieving over the last few years. Hundreds of studies now, some of them prompted by the pandemic, and thousands of grievers who perhaps did not feel comfortable putting their true grieving selves out into the world have flocked to the internet. And so there are places like grief.com and bereavement.com that have drawn millions of grievers to speak their truth about what this is really like and to find, if you will, a type of, community, virtual community maybe, where they will be understood and that they can speak what they're experiencing. Some of the things about science that are being shown, which I think is really interesting, is that the human brain appears to have an inbuilt grieving and trauma program, as if it knows how to take trauma and deal with it. The brain, in the most simplistic terms, has three parts. There's the deep inner base, which is keeping us alive, keeping us breathing, keeping our heart going, things that we're not even aware of. But then there's a core center that deals with memories, that deals with experiences. It's trillions of connections that try to continuously work to reflect our reality. But in the front, there is our talksy monkey brain, if you will. That's the one that tells you how to get from one place to another, that posits what to do in any given situation, often negatively, if you look forward, like what might negatively happen as it tries to save you. And what they're discovering is that the grieving brain has a whole different pattern than, say, depression. And the front part of the brain will be shut down or slowed, which explains why you can't think straight. You're probably not safe to drive. Some of the strange kinds of symptoms that you get that don't seem to be rational. They're not rational. You may be convinced that somehow your loved one is still alive, that a mistake has been made. The phone will ring and you think it's that person calling you, or a sound. Or you may walk down the street and see someone that looks like that person and think, oh, well, maybe they made a mistake. That's the deep brain trying to figure out what has happened in the earliest stages. And in the earliest stages, grieving is shock. It is. even if you've had years or months or weeks to plan for it, there is this sense of shock. In fact, when we mention that someone's died in this community, you'll hear a gasp, an audible gasp, like, oh no. And then there may come a sense of, well, it's happened. Now it's real, it's really happened, only to be followed by what's called brain fog, and it is now being called grief fog. You can't think straight. You may slip into denial. And denial is a griever's friend. It's not an enemy, because it allows you to sort of deal with a severe pain one drop at a time, one piece at a time as you're ready. It's been said, or at least I heard this in a movie, that we should cherish our loved ones while they're still alive. And then we should remember them fondly after they've died. But I would like to posit that in between those two things, there's quite a distance. You don't cherish immediately. You might cherish immediately. But in the meantime, there's this bog, deep and rich, that you have to go through, that you wade through, in order to process what has happened to you. BD, before death. AD, after death. That chasm in between that changes your life so radically. I'd like to talk about some of the symptoms of grief. We all know about Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, I guess. It's so familiar. And surprisingly, it's almost half a century old, and we use it to say you're supposed to go through this line. You're supposed to bargain. Oh, wait, let's do it right. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then final acceptance. And grievers are not very well served by that, because if they do try to go by that, they say that it'll circle around and it'll be this and then it'll be that. It's no straight line. Grief comes and goes in waves. The waves could be even in the same day. That is, you think that you've finally are starting to get better and then crash again. And like with PTSD, it's post-traumatic stress disorder, you'll have flashbacks. I can remember getting stuck on my mother's dying face for quite a while. It would come back to me and haunt me. Grieving takes time. In our culture that's so full of trying to make us be productive and move on, there's a lot of denial about how long it really takes. And for many, if it's a very deep grief, a loss of a child, a loss of a long-term partner, it may come and go for years. Some people will say, I think about him or her every day. And in severe cases, it's now being called prolonged grief disorder. Damn them. I think it's because they want to get money for insurance, so they have to have some type of symptom label. But every person grieves differently. It's said that it's as unique as your thumbprint or your fingerprint. And so you can't expect that other people are going to have the same reactions that you do. And the other thing I've discovered is that one grief will bring up all your past griefs to be looked at. It's not just a singular thing, but it's like you're opening the Pandora's box. There can be weeping. But you know, in this culture, we don't want people to weep too much out in public. We'll try to immediately comfort the person to make them stop. Our corporate America begrudgingly allows grievers to have 3 days of paid leave. bereavement leave, it's called. And you'll receive all kinds of unwanted advice, I think. I think you just have to say, bless them. They don't know what it's like, what I'm going through. You know, they'll try to move you on. At least he's not suffering anymore. He's gone into God's hands. You'll get better. All of these kinds of reassurances that are trying, in a sense, to deny that deep and powerful thing, that event, that process that's going on with you. It's been discovered that not only does your mind or your emotions grieve, but your body does too. And you will have physical symptoms. It could be aches and pains. It could be sleeplessness. It could be the loss of appetite for a while. It could be any number of sort of strange things happening that would lead you to think or ask, am I going crazy? I think I'm going crazy. I don't think they asked that back in 1911 because they had the village around them and they were familiar with death and grieving very intimately. Exhaustion, couple of sleeplessness with just being tired all the time and listless. And we talked about denial and aches and pains, but rage, how about that? You may suppress it, as we often do. And I'm thinking about the widow who, in the days and weeks after her husband's death, ended up having to take up all of his stuff, carry out the garbage on Tuesday night. And the garbage bag breaks and spreads garbage all over the place. And it was the straw that broke the camel's back. Damn you! Why did you have to die? Now I've got to do the garbage, and now I've got to do the taxes, and now I've got to fill the car with gas. Or if you put it underground, you may be like some, for instance, men who were taught early on that real boys don't cry, that and they will hold it in and drop rage bombs here and there and yon. Maybe on innocent relatives, or maybe on traffic. But there will come a time, most likely, when there will be that moment of truth, because grief will have its way. I asked Sharon to ding when it's time for me to pull it to an end. Did you ding? All right then, and I might keep you later than you want to, but I'm going to keep talking for a minute because it's so important. Here are some suggestions for helping you to navigate your grieving. And number one is be truthful about it with yourself. Be honest. Don't be divided into two parts, the part that's the front part and the part that is really experiencing this. I call it standing naked in your grief. And there's something called focusing that can help with that. A psychologist once looked at why some patients got better quickly, others it was more prolonged. And the answer was the ones who got better were honest in their deepest sense of feeling. That core brain does not operate in words. It operates in symbols. And so if you want to help yourself get better, think of it as putting a plumb line, Dan, down inside to your deep core symbolic self, and then try to match it with an appropriate word. It could be, I feel lonely. No, I don't. I feel anxious. No, that's not it. I feel afraid. Yes, when you hit the exact word to match that symbolic deep self, your soul self, if you will, there will be a dramatic change. You will feel it, a visceral change. It's important that we connect with one another. We are born to belong to one another. Don't get away from the village. We need to share with one another, be open to one another. I like the biblical sense of be ye kind, one unto another, tender-hearted, and forgiving one another. And finally, listen to each other, not judgment, not telling things, but listen quietly, belly listen, if you will. And finally, I'm going to end with a scripture from Galatians. Do not grow weary with well-doing, for in due time ye shall reap if you do not lose heart. Thank you.
Our closing hymn is Abide with Me. The words will be on the screen. Please remain standing as Sandy gives the benediction.
When the road seems endless and dark, may you find joy in the midst of your pain. May you have whispering hope. May you discover balm in Gilead. May you be surrounded by affection and compassion at every turn, and may a new and wondrous path unfold for you in front of you once your grief work is done.